What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, continuing my deep dive into all things Neil Young. Today, I'd like to talk about a bootleg release, a very popular bootleg release, one that you can find. I'm pretty sure it's on Spotify. I know it's on YouTube and YouTube Music. Crazy Horse, 1986, November 21st, 1986. I believe this is the last show of this tour, and this is the tour from which the basic tracks for the album Life came from, which I just reviewed the Neil Young video previous to this. So I wanted to touch in with this just because it connects with Life. This was a show that was broadcast live on KLOS down in Los Angeles, even though Cow Palace is up in just south of San Francisco, Daly City. And back in the day, radio broadcasts of concerts were pretty frequent. I would say once a month it seemed that KLOS had like some band that was being like broadcast from somewhere in the United States usually. And there's a certain sound quality to these that's not the greatest sound quality in the world. This really sounds like you're listening to a live show on the radio, and it's a recording of that. So I'm not recommending this because of the sound quality. The most recent Archives box set from Neil Young, Archives 3, covered this era, and there's only, I believe, 3 songs from this tour represented on that box. And so my understanding is, or my guess is, there's no really good sound recordings of this tour. Otherwise, maybe we would have gotten them already. It seemed like we definitely would have got something in the Archives 3 box, which we did not. So it might be the only thing we have. There is video of this. One of the Blu-ray videos that was in the box set was, I think, of this show. This was a concept tour called In a Rusted Out Garage, which kind of is essentially Joe's Garage, the song. We don't get into the weird stuff at the end of that, but it's kind of Joe's Garage, the song, turned into a Neil Young concert. You have like skits. His mom calls at one point and warns Neil and the boys that an exterminator's coming, wants to know what's that weird smell. The audience goes, yeah, weird smell. Sam Kinison plays the neighbor next door who's super angry and calls up on this tirade and does the Sam Kinison thing. We get a dog barking. Elvis the dog is barking throughout the entire thing. In the very beginning, I believe it's rats who come out and are talking about being in this garage and watching what happens. And then the garage door opens and the rats have to scurry away. And then there's Neil and Crazy Horse playing. So an interesting concept. The skits are kind of annoying. Maybe they have a really good sound quality version of this and they just don't want to release it because of the skits. It's an interesting, but I do like the set list. I do like the variety of old stuff, new stuff, stuff from Trans, stuff from the 80s, which is given a pretty, they're not rewriting these songs, but it's neat to hear just Crazy Horse bringing them live. So what we get on here, it's generally a 2-disc set. And there's a couple versions of this. There's the Live at Cow Palace 86 version of this, which for some reason seemed to like randomly just assign the songs track in order. Like, hey, you're going first, you're going second, with it does not resemble what the actual set list looks like. There is a series of YouTube releases called FM Broadcast or The Last Great FM Broadcast or something like that. And it's a bunch of FM broadcast shows, so the sound quality's kind of all similarly. The one for this show, there was one for this show. It is in the correct order. It has all the songs, but it's missing Cinnamon Girl. The Cow Palace boot is also missing Cinnamon Girl, but there's a video of Cinnamon Girl on YouTube. So what do we get? We open up with Mr. Soul after the garage opens. It's sort of the Trans version of Mr. Soul. We have more of that more robotic feel to it. It sounds like a huge rock song. I think one of the ironic experiences of listening to this is, even though they're in a garage, they're a garage band getting ready for the big show. That's kind of the narrative that goes through anytime Neil talks or interacts with somebody, the neighbor or his mom. But it sounds like a huge rock show. Like, even though they're in a garage, it sounds like a huge rock and roll show. Some of the songs sound really good because of that. but maybe the solos aren't as indulgent or just as like Neely as maybe previous tours. There are some things where that big rock sound definitely hurts, like the piano on After the Gold Rush is losing that sort of intimate piano feel and has that big arena piano feel, which when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, yeah. Sounds good on FM radio, but that's about it. So anyways, it sounds like a big rock show, even though they're playing out of their garage. So it opens up with Mr. Soul, then a pretty straightforward Cinnamon Girl, which for some reason isn't on these boots. When You Dance, I Can Really Love, which sounds like a normal version of this. It's just the drums are bigger, the sound is bigger. It's just got some really big rock show energy to it. We get it Down by the River. Really nice guitar playing on here. Tasty, fluid. Neil's really engaged. Nice, really squealing noises at the end. We're bringing it. Sounds good. Down by the River. Awesome, awesome choice, too. It's like, what, the fourth song in? We're already dropping it Down by the River. Then we get a Too Lonely, relatively new song. Sounds like the album. After this, Neil's mom calls. The exterminators are coming. What's that funny smell? Then Neil plays both of these solo. We get a solo version of Heart of Gold, acoustic guitar, a solo version of After the Gold Rush on piano. I don't like the piano sound. It has that big, big sound on here. Then we get Inca Queen. Pretty much sounds like the album version, but it's pretty neat to hear. I think it works well, sort of like kicking off the final third of this first set. Then we get a pair of songs that I think are maybe underappreciated in the canon, but work really, really, really well live. A nicely jammed out, aggressive drive back. Fantastic. Followed by an equally aggressive with a fantastic ending guitar solo of Opera Star. A great sort of pure, this is the garage rock that this band's supposed to be playing, a very garage rock ending to the set, before we finish off the entire set with the Cortez the Killer. The opening beginning of Cortez is huge. It just sounds absolutely epic. Like, I think the Zuma version, which is perfection, that Cortez is like you're watching these ships come across the ocean from like a distance, and I think you listening to Zuma, you feel the vastness of the ocean as these ships come, and nonetheless they represent danger. In this one, you have a close-up on the ship, and the ships are coming across the ocean, and the ships just feel massive. There's a really, really huge energy to this. Don't like the reggae ending, though the bass is super funky, and there is some nice jamming, and then they just kind of close it out in like a big rock epic style. Not the most nuanced Cortez. There's definitely better Cortezes that have been released, but it is a very strong rock and roll show ending to this. Then they take a set break. They come back and they open with two songs off Trans, Sample and Hold and Computer Age. They both sound better here live. There's a nice guitar, very simple guitar riff that's just like this two-note thing, almost really terse kind of driving guitar riff that kind of underlines Sample and Hold in the beginning, and then both in the end gives it a lot more of a rock energy, but it still has that synth energy from Trans. I think it works great as a second set opener to bring them back into like the audience back in, but you're doing something a little bit different than you normally do. Really good. And that's followed by Computer Age, which is just, I think, fantastic. Like, it's got a great groove. Neil does a really good job of striking a balance between the synth energy and the live rock energy. I just think it's absolutely like a really Computer Age is absolutely fantastic. After that, we get Violent Side, pretty much similar to the studio version. Not much different than that. I think there are some pre-recorded backing vocals that are used here because the backing vocals don't sound like Crazy Horse. And it just sounds weird. The backing vocals on this don't really match for me. Then we get Mideast Vacation, which is just fantastic. Sounds even better live. Really nice, sort of tense middle solo in there that's really, really fantastic. Really good. At the end, he kind of repeats the last two lines of the final verse. He repeats over and over again about I was on vacation with my family in the Middle East. Whatever that line is, he repeats that over and over again as sort of a fade out. Really awesome version of this. Long Walk Home follows. Still just a weird song. a rewrite of Letter from Nam, sort of addressing American foreign policy. And it's got some interesting parts. It's a little bit like After the Gold Rush, a little bit like Queen, maybe like ballady Queen. There's this weird, big kind of flirting with prog action and weird sound effects. I've always just thought it was a weird song, but it works really well here. I think it works better in the middle of this set than it does on Life, and I like it on Life. Then we get Needle and the Damage Done, just your Needle and the Damage Done version, as we're expecting, solo acoustic. And we're starting to see here in 86 the sort of ossification, the calcification of the greatest hits, Needle, After the Gold Rush, what's the other one? Heart of Gold, the things that kind of have to be played at every show, it feels like. When Your Lonely Heart Breaks, which really doesn't do anything for me here. I don't know, it's okay. Around the World also just kind of doesn't work well here. Here we're kind of dragging a little for the newer songs. These two, probably two of my least favorite ones off that album, off Life, and here I just don't think they work that well live. Then we get a fantastic Powderfinger with a little guitar fooling around before we drop into that opening part. An awesome Like a Hurricane, really fantastic Like a Hurricane. And then we get a Hey, Hey, My, Into the Black, which just feels... All these things feel huge at this point. They feel big rock star type energy. The Hey Hey My is crunchy. It's got a really noisy feedback ending, kind of revealing what we would definitely lean even heavier into on the Ragged Glory tour. We're starting to experiment with just using feedback as a jamming mechanism and noise. And when I saw him in Bonnaroo in 2003, which is, decades later, he opened up with 17 minutes of noise, and this is the beginning of that. And by the time we get there, we got a 17-minute noise opener, which was absolutely amazing. The Like a Hurricane is fantastic. He does this weird thing though in it, which does not need to happen. They start the song, it sounds great, it sounds huge, it sounds epic. But then Neil's like, no, man, we can't play like that. If we're going to go to the big city and go to San Francisco and play the big show, we got to sound better than that. And then they play it again, and I don't think it sounds as impressive the second time as it did the first time. So I don't know what that weird thing was about. Maybe something was happening on stage. And then the encore is Prisoners of Rock and Roll, which was sort of the mantra of this tour. Yeah, so, yeah, the record company man's the bad guy. So, not the greatest sound in the world, but I think it is a fascinating look at where Neil was at this point in his career, right before we sort of get to another of his apexes with like Freedom and Ragged Glory and that run of awesome albums that he would have at the end of the 80s into the 90s. And this is an interesting live snapshot of where he is in one of the more tumultuous, all over the place, weird places of his career. So yeah, it's a good listen. It's not something I go back to a lot, only because the sound is probably one of the weaker sounding things that he has released. But for a one-time listen, to have a better understanding of Neil and where he was at and how these songs grow live, and to compare the songs on Life with how they were performed in concert, I think it's an interesting listen that way. And it's bootlegged and it's free on YouTube, so go listen to it. Obviously, you have YouTube, you're watching this, so yeah. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on that. Also, there's videos of this. So go to Neil Young in a rusted out garage and you will find videos, both some bad videos and bad sound quality, but you can see what it looked like, what the garage looked like and all that stuff. The rat costumes and all that stuff. It's crazy stuff. All right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you check it out. Let me know what I messed up on, all that kind of stuff. And that's all I got. Peace. Talk to you later.